Identifying domain classes, the noun technique. The noun technique is a straightforward method since object-oriented classes are things, in other words, are nouns, then just start listing all the nouns. This technique does not require extensive domain knowledge to get started. The downside is, of course, that you can end up with a very, very long list of nouns. The list does need to be trimmed to include only those things that are important to the system. Some things are valid nouns, but the system does not need to remember them. For example, automo nouns might have desks, might have laptops, might have managers, and so forth. The CSMS system does not need to keep track of these things. This technique also yields nouns that are synonyms and nouns that are attributes. Let's go ahead and discuss those in the next slide. A synonym is for things with different names, but in reality, they are the same item. One department may call a payout as payment, and another department may call it as disbursement. Or sending out an invoice may be the same thing as sending out a bill. Attributes are also nouns, but they are attributes of other nouns. They are not classes, they are just attributes. Example, the nouns name and address are just properties or characteristics of the object class customer. So each customer, for example, will have attributes like name, like address, like social security number, like DOB, and so on and so forth. Also, an inventory item which a system does need to remember will have properties or attributes of color, quantity, and perhaps gender. So really the goal is to identify which nouns are object class, which nouns are attributes, and which nouns are synonyms. Here's an example of a class, an object, and some attributes or values assigned to the attribute. So on the left side here, we have a class that has class for a customer that has few attributes, including customer ID, first name, last name, phone, home phone, and work phone. So each one of those attributes will describe a customer. Now it's a time to create a new customer. Creating a new customer means assigning values to each attributes. So here we have 3 new customers. Customer 1, John Smith, with this phone number and a customer ID. A second customer called Mary Jones, and a third customer for Bill Casper. This is a class, and these are objects of the class customer. An object is created whenever we start assigning values to the attributes. Here are the steps to follow for the noun technique. Some of these steps might be helpful for the brainstorming technique as well that we've discussed in the previous video. First, during the discussion of systems requirements, start making the list of nouns. Nouns that might come up are, for example, customers, product item, sale, shipment, and so on and so forth. Second, analyze the existing system and the existing documentation, looking for more and more nouns. Nouns that might appear are order, purchase, price, color, size, and so on and so forth. Third, as you build your list, you will need to refine it. Do so by asking 3 types of questions for each noun on the list. Should it be included? In other words, is it definitely a class? Should it be excluded? Is it definitely something that it's not a class? Or Does it need more research? In other words, a decision cannot be made at this point. More understanding or research is required. In deciding whether to include or exclude a noun, these questions are helpful. To include something, the answer to these questions should be positive. Is it unique? Meaning it has not been defined before, and the system does not, or I'm sorry, does need to remember it. Is it inside the scope of the system? So before we indicate that computers do not need to be remembered by the CSMS system. However, for an asset management system, computers may need to be listed and remembered. Is there more than one? For example, if there is only one RMO home office, it probably does not need to be listed in the database. However, we might need to have a list of all retail evidence. To exclude something, answers to these questions should be positive. Is it really just a synonym of another class? Is it an output or a report that comes from information in the system? In other words, is it a report of existing attributes of other classes? For example, customer statements are really just report of customer account information and customer transactions. Is it an input that provides data into an existing class or classes? For example, a customer adjustment is really just an input to change a customer account or to create a transaction. Or finally, is it just an attribute? We have seen many examples of attributes like name, price, color, and so on and so forth. The final step are simply to take this list and then ask the questions about each noun on the list and then review it and refine it with users and stakeholders. At the end of this process, you should have a solid list of classes for the new system. Here's an example of a example list for the RMO. Let's look at a few. Accounting. It's just a department, so we're going to go ahead and exclude it. Back order. Is this a special type of an order that is unique, or is it simply a status in an attribute that can be described by a class? So we may need to do more research for this one. Back order information. This is simply a report. So we're just going to go ahead and exclude it. What about bank? Exclude it unless you have several branches for the bank, and the system must store those branch information. What about the catalog? Is it simply a list of products, or is it a unique item with attributes? Yes, in this case, it's a unique item. It will have attributes and values such as a version, for example, and the value of a spring of 2017 or 2017, and so on and so forth. What about charge adjustment? This is an input resulting in a transaction, so go ahead and exclude this one. What about confirmation? Simply, it's just an output, exclude it. Credit card information. Is this a unique item or simply an attribute of a customer? Let's do more research on this one. What about merchandising? This is just a department like the accounting one of the RMO system. So exclude it, no need to store it. So this process of reviewing these nouns works well for both the brainstorming technique and the noun technique. It will help to ensure that you have created a comprehensive and accurate list of object classes. Thanks for watching.